I have a
No,
crazy.
you're up.
Okay, well, this was like, again, talking about things that Justin covered almost back in the Emulsion podcast days, all the way up until 2025. It's like 11 Madison Park was one, and then we have this other story that is just like I was like both gutted and then also weirdly not surprised to hear this, that Jacob Bickelhaupt got arrested. So if Jacob Bickelhaupt doesn't ring a bell for any of you, the words 42 grams might. And so if anybody has seen that documentary, it was this very weird watch. I don't know if you remember watching that documentary,
Oh,
Ray,
I
but
do.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it was like this guy in Chicago is kind of like being this counterculture person saying, I'm going to host supper clubs out of my house. It's going to be like this pop-up-y vibe, underground dining. Goes on to open a space. And when 42 grams opened, they got 2 Michelin stars. And this documentary kind of follows Jacob and his then at the time wife Jennifer in opening this concept. And there's some very awkward scenes in that documentary, man. Like him having
Also,
go ahead.
it's important for that brand is that it was illegal.
Yes.
It wasn't
Yes.
legal.
Totally.
That it was like bad that it was like a pop up type space, but like that was also the allure of it. Like fuck the system. Like we're gonna do this. Don't care. Sorry, you're wrong.
No, no, not at all. Because at things change. You know, like the industry changes. That's why we cover the news here for folks, because it's like what it might be quote unquote bad or illegal or not in the status quo can actually get you all the attention that you need to get 2 Michelin stars. And that's what plays out in this documentary. But there's these awkward scenes where he's having conversations with Jennifer. Or there's this one scene, I'm really racking my memory to bring this to light here, but there was like an intern or like a guy who was coming in to almost like stage with Jacob and help him with things. And the guy was a little bit inexperienced and he was a little like out of sorts. But Jacob was just totally being an asshole to him. Like just
Yeah.
stereotypical Chicago, just yelling, screaming, being upset, passive aggressive type of attitude towards him. And I just remember watching that and being like, wow, F this guy in some way, shape, or form. So in 2017, the facade of this whole building this brand and we got all this attention and look, we're up on literally on the level of like Curtis Duffy. When I was on the opening team of Grace, we got 2 Michelin stars the first year being open. And so it's like this underground dining concept is going to be at the same level of this multi-million-dollar, build out of all this stuff. Like that's crazy. Comes out that Jacob was assaulting his wife, who was also a business partner in 42 grams. The restaurant closes. So that is in 2017. It's this whole thing that
Yeah.
comes to pass, and it's very unfortunate and it happens. Okay.
Can we stay on that real quick?
Yes, yes.
I remember because I just want to I remember watching and feeling comfortable because like the beginning it was like wow these two are geniuses, and a lot of what I felt when if I like I had to go back and kind of jog my memory and like look at this, like a lot of what I felt was he didn't give his wife like nearly enough credit. Like she was a business partner, she was the co-partner. Like yes, he was made the quote unquote culinary mind, but she like did everything else. And I remember leaving that going, this dude is awful to her. And that was weird because like you start it and if this is wrong, I apologize. My memory of this from watching it so many years ago is like, this is really cool. This food is really great, but it kind of like spirals and like how he treats her and like doesn't give her credit. It's like really just uncomfortable and like you feel really like dour at the end of it. It's just like not a good space. But I just really recall like her doing a ton and him giving her no credit or any respect to what she was doing.
So after this all happens, and it's really unfortunate that she had to go through that, he gets quote unquote canceled justifiably. Like that is not cool to just be abusing anybody in that capacity, much so like your wife, someone who works with you on a day-to-day basis. It's like playing out at work in a lot of these cases. Even if it's not, like if it's at home, like that sucks. And so in a good example of canceling from how society kind of like gives credence to people like this, Jacob partners with a new woman named Nadia, and they attempt to do what are called low-profile dining events in Chicago. And so they're trying to get back on the scene. 42 grams is closed, and they're just kind of like, let's try to test the waters again and host some dinners. But actually, the community forces them out of Chicago, and they're like, do not support this guy. Do not go to his dinners. This is definitely not who we want to be kind of like giving our dollars and attention to. in the city of Chicago where there's so many other options. And this guy is clearly, like not done the work to change his behavior. And I just want to be very clear when I talk about canceling. I often talk about it in the context of giving a path to redemption for people who have made mistakes. And in this case, it was so obvious that this guy has just like, okay, let's let a little bit of time pass and then let's just go back into it. And I'm not going to do anything, quote unquote, differently in how I behave. Fast forward to 2020 and 2022, that kind of season, I notice he kind of like starts to pop up again. So I'm getting eater articles about him. All of a sudden in my YouTube recommendations, there's this guy named Jacob, and I notice his face from the 42 Grams documentary. He launches a YouTube channel, which I'm almost positive was called Sous Chef Academy at the time, where he was trying to be a YouTuber. He was trying to talk about creative ideas. He was trying to talk about like how to manage in a professional kitchen. He was trying to talk about like the dish development process and how he, he was always do this really cringe thing of like, I'm Michelin starred chef, like I'm Michelin award winning, person. It's like, dude, I don't know how you view this, Ray, but like 9 times out of 10, the restaurant is the organization that got the stars. Yes, the person who is like at the pinnacle of, running the thing, I call it proximity to the concept. They can ride the benefits of, again, you're the owner of this place. Like, again, that stays with you as long as you decide to be close to that place. But it is like, if the restaurant closes, you are no longer a Michelin starred chef anymore. It is like, it is something you have to keep up on a year to year basis. That's why people pay attention to it. That's why people give so much, again, brand positive equity to Michelin, because they put in the legwork to go and continue to rate these restaurants. But I am very much so of the mind, and this rubbed me the wrong way when I covered this story, again, almost 5 years ago. It's crazy to say that, is that he was still going around saying, I have Michelin stars, when the people in the industry who like, this and live in this world, it's so obvious that like you don't. And so he moves to Denver in 2021, and Jacob and Nadia, where apparently Nadia is from, in Denver, and they decide to go with this new concept called Konro. So for those who don't know, Konro is like the grill, the Japanese grill that you will typically use with like Binchotan, but that's the name of the concept, and it's called Konro Dinner Club. And so they would host these omakase style meals. And so they have this ultra private business. There's no, like LLC from the sense of what you're talking about with, this is not really going to be established in a very by the book capacity. We're just going to host these things. And he ultimately had a really hard time finding a foothold in Denver as well. Because again, at the time, Denver didn't have a Michelin guide. He was still using some of this like big fish in a small pond type of attitude, I think, when he was in Denver. At least that's how I perceived it. Yeah. And so Denver's not ultimately working. And so then in late 2024, Jacob and Nadia announced plans for a new chef's counter called 1320 in Denver's Reno district, aiming for a lavish, intimate experience at $295 per person. And so this restaurant actually opens. So this is like a trend now. So underground dining in Chicago, open 42 Grams, do the thing, get the awards, blah, blah, blah. Same thing in Denver. Underground dining called Konro, open the chef's counter called 1320, and then they quietly open in early 2025, and they see limited operation due to this tainted reputation that he has. Because love him or hate him, food media, when you're opening, is going to look into your past. They're going to, see where you got your experience from. They're going to try to write a piece on you. And when all the headlines that are popping up are saying this person assaulted his ex-wife, it's not necessarily great. And so how are they not going to talk about that when, you're going to go in and try to open a place? And so efforts to join influential circles in Colorado's food scene, such as the Colorado 5 chef group, resulted in public uproar and Bickelhaupt's removal from the lineup. And so he gets canceled again, quote unquote, so to speak, or he doesn't even allow himself to get any sort of footing in a place like Denver. So we fast forward to 2025 this year. Spring of 2025, Bickelhaupt and Nadia move to West Palm Beach, Florida, and they go back to Konro as the name of the concept. So it's a 10-seat omakase chef's counter, and they make history as Palm Beach County's first Michelin-starred restaurant in April. And then in June, the story takes a horrifying turn as Bickelhaupt is arrested for violently assaulting Nadia, who she tried to flee back home to Denver. He apparently violently assaulted her. She was having seizures from, again, this is really, really bad. This is not good.
No,
And
it's like it's scary stuff. Seeing this article from the Miami New Times, and I just wanted to quote this before you continue, is that on June 2nd, West Palm Beach police arrested Chef Jacob Bickelhaupt on felony charges of aggravated battery and domestic battery after he allegedly beat a woman for several hours, causing her to suffer a seizure and a subdural hematoma, a potentially life-threatening collection of blood outside the brain. She was reportedly rushed into emergency surgery. There's other reports that she came in and had first claimed that it was from a car accident, and then obviously the people helping in the hospital was like, no, this is not from a car accident. This is from somebody else. It's really sad. And just what really just bothered me or stuck with me is like the several hours part. Like what she was like, it had to endure. Obviously, beyond that, like screw this guy.
Totally.
But
totally
the
screw this
several
guy.
hours that led to this, and so it's just like, yeah, this is like truly awful. It's an awful turn for how the story took. Like the turn it took and where this ended up is like, it's uncomfortably disturbing. So
I do want to just very quickly touch on the fact that I think that there's a little bit of a protectionism sense that I'm getting from how this is being reported. From the research I did and the dots I'm connecting, it is Nadia. I do want to leave it open to the fact that it might not be. So it is, given Bickelhaupt's
allegedly
history,
Nadia.
Yeah. So given the history of him working with these people who are like relationally involved with him, and given the fact that she was reportedly returning back to her hometown of Denver, and that is exactly where they decided to move together when like the pandemic was happening. It's just like there's too many similarities here. I also don't think that, is he going to beat just like some random person who is like the maitre d' at the restaurant? I don't, you know what I mean? Like there's a little bit too, there's too close of the stars are aligning here for it to not be Nadia. And again,
there
totally
was like
open
some
to being
restraining
wrong.
order, allegedly some restraining order stuff. So it's like,
yes. And so,
and brought that up just to say that there is some, you said victim protective reporting and whatnot.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so August 2025, this month, Kona was stripped of its Michelin star and delisted from the Michelin Guide as the scandal actually comes out into the open. The restaurant closes and all public personas for the restaurant end up going dark. And so I don't necessarily like the takeaway seems to be so obvious for me, but I think that it is also this like the industry's reacting, which is positive from the sense of like I'm reading some threads on Reddit and people are talking about like toxic chef culture and prevalence of abuse in the industry and like needed oversight and support for victims of some of this stuff. And so from that sense, I think it's really, really positive because the fact that this could happen both in like with two separate women, and you can't tell me that it probably wasn't not happening in Denver. Do you know what I mean? Like in three separate cities, and I'm just going to try it again. I'm going to leave town and I'm going to try to do it again. It's just so blatantly scummy to me. Like it so sucks to see some of this stuff. And if anything, the fact that for all the shade that we can throw on people trying to quote unquote cancel people and ruin their careers and whatever, this is an example of it like genuinely like helping from the sense of this is actually in Denver. It actually worked from the sense of they weren't actually able to stay open for long enough for this person to find any sort of business success, get more people into the organization that he could maybe harm. And so I really try to couch some of my upsetness with the fact that like there's something else going on with Jacob. And I really hope that he's able to find the support that he needs to potentially kind of like get through this, because it's like there's deeper issues that are going on here. But at the same time, it's just like crazy for me to see some of this stuff. And I think the vibes that you can get from people, clearly me maybe not so favorably covering his, attempt at being a YouTuber and attempt at trying to do pop-ups in Denver, was at least directionally correct. But it's just such a crazy story to see. Like, he's arrested, and I have a hard time seeing, like, at least in the next couple of years, him making any sort of attempt back in cuisine and kitchens and fine dining and restaurants. I don't know if you had any takeaways from this story. It's just really sad to see it.
Allegedly second degree attempt to murder, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how long he's not in society.
Nuts.
Yeah, like that was but the reception to 42 grams, like if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, that's 100%. It got,
Wow.
pretty sure, got awarded a lot. This idea of the stressed and stress chef that couldn't cut it, or that couldn't, the stress chef that was the genius, the tortured genius that we put on pedestals that I feel like the culinary scene has reckoned with, but still has a lot of work to do. Where we like, because someone's a genius, we allow certain behavior in fine dining. Um, yeah, I don't have much more to say than like it's awful. Like this dude, there were clear signs. Um, there's this idea of like the stress genius that we got to get rid of out of cooking, and it's like, no, you're not giving your business partner credit, not giving people credit you work with, physically assaulting them, like, is not okay. And there's no level or creativity of food that you can put on a plate to change that. And that's the reality of the situation. So I don't have much more on it beyond that. Obviously, like, thoughts of the victim of this, if it's Nadi or whoever, and it's really horrifying. The idea that it just, and that's this is the stuff that sits with me. That, hours long assault, bleeding of the brain, seizures. You don't know what else that could lead to, like from a brain functional standpoint later on in life. Like that's just awful. And like, again, screw this guy.
Yeah, same.
Not much more to say beyond that, but like, should definitely not be allowed to be a business anymore.
Totally.
And especially not around a restaurant.